Another big story here, from global basketball star to owning a share of one of baseball's iconic franchises. LeBron James has become a partner in the Fenway Sports Group, making him a part owner of the Boston Red Sox.
Crazy.
ESPN has confirmed. Okay, he's a noted Yankee fan. The news was first reported by the Boston Globe. The deal is contingent on Major League Baseball approving. Now, LeBron and Maverick Carter join a group that holds ownership stakes not only in the Red Sox, but also Liverpool, the football club across the pond, the defending Premier League champs, as well as partial stakes in NASCAR, Team Roush Fenway Racing, and Nesson. You know that network.
I do.
And the group was formed, by the way, 20 years ago.
Yeah. They got their hands a little bit of everything. So does Brian Windhorst, who joins us now. I mean, you've known Bron since he was literally a kid from Akron. Big picture, what's the significance of him buying into the Red Sox?
Yeah, El, this is a step in LeBron's direction to being the front man for professional sports ownership. Now, he has been in business with Fenway Sports Group for a decade now. He's owned 2% of Liverpool since 2011. And in that last decade, he has been focusing his off-court efforts for when he is after his career and he can go ahead and buy a team. Now, in today's day and age, when NBA teams are over $2 billion and many other professional sports teams are worth over $1 billion, you're going to need partners, even with all the money LeBron has made. Being a part of Fenway Sports Group, which now has over $7 billion in holdings, gives him the opportunity to potentially use these investors someday to buy a team, whether it's an NBA team, an MLS team, a baseball team, a football team. But he's one step closer with this deal.
His basketball acumen only rivaled by his business acumen. Wendy's back with us in a little bit. We're going to talk a little Knicks potentially out there looking for a trade on the market. Wendy, thanks.
The Nets, they beat the Knicks. James Harden, how about this? Become the first Nets player with a 20-point, 15-rebound, 15-assist triple-double in franchise history. Of course, the controversy at the end, Julius Randle called for a travel going up for a three to tie the game in the final seconds. He was not pleased. You see his reaction. So after expressing his disappointment in the team's recent struggles, Kawhi Leonard sent a message as the Clippers beat Luka and the Mavericks. Kawhi played a season-high 40 minutes after playing the previous night against the Pelicans. Clippers improved to 7-0 in the second night of back-to-backs. And we wrap things up here. The Lakers blowing out the Warriors by 31. LeBron recording his 98th career triple-double and his 61st after turning 30, tying Wilt Chamberlain for the most in NBA history, according to Elias. Lakers were perfect on 25 shot attempts in the restricted area. Steph Curry's Warriors were far from perfect in the blowout loss.
We got to play better. We have to develop a winning attitude every single night. And honestly, we got to get sick of, just getting blown out, because that's embarrassing. I think we have to have some pride about how we're playing. You can lose games. That's going to happen, but not like that.
NBA insider Brian Windhorst joining us now with much more. Wendy, what's the real problem with this Warriors team at this point right now?
This is a tale as old as the NBA itself, Kevin. It's a team that's stuck in between competing with some veteran stars and switching over and playing young players. And that's what the Warriors are doing right now. They're playing lineups sometimes with 3 and 4 guys who are second year or younger. James Wiseman last night, for example, was minus 25 in the plus minus. Jordan Poole, another one of their young guys, was like minus 19. Nico Mannion, minus 18. Look, they're not going to be like that every night. But if Steve Kerr and the Warriors organization is going to play those young guys, they're going to have nights like this. And this is why this season, even getting into the playoffs would be a huge accomplishment, even into the play-in tournament for this team. Yeah,
it shows you how much they miss the veteran leadership there with Klay Thompson joining Steph in the backcourt. So at 20-20, the Warriors are 1 game out of the playoff standings in the West. Now the Knicks, they have the same record, and they currently sit in the 7th spot in the East. How aggressive are they expected to be in terms of making additions to their roster here?
I never believed I would have said this in October, but they are buyers. They have 3 picks in the upcoming draft, 2 first-round picks, and the Detroit Pistons' second-round pick, which is going to be at the top of the second round. They're interested in potentially using one of those to bring in a player. But if they don't do something at the trade deadline, doesn't mean they're done, Kevin. They've got $15 million in salary cap space. And executives that I've talked to think that the Knicks could make a bid for some of these guys who might get bought out, a guy like Andre Drummond, a guy like LaMarcus Aldridge. Not only could they outbid other teams, but they could potentially offer a multi-year deal to win out, to try to add another piece, especially a guy who can score. They need scoring right now on this roster. So just because they don't make a trade doesn't mean the Knicks aren't going to be very aggressive next week.
Tibbs is no doubt the coach of the year. By the way, the trade deadline less than 10 days away on March 25th. Wendy, thank you so much.
New book, Inside the NBA Bubble, a championship season under quarantine. Lakers' Jared Dudley revealed his team was primed for the battle for LA because of Paul George saying, quote, "We hear some of the guys talking about how they're the team to beat in LA. It's fine if Kawhi Leonard says stuff like that. He's defending a championship. But we think it's disrespectful for Paul George, who hasn't won, to put himself on the level of LeBron James and Anthony Davis. This kind of stuff motivates us." Last night, Paul George with the kill him with kindness approach.
God bless him. God bless you, Jared Dudley. I don't know what it is. Dudes love throwing my name and stuff, but God bless you, Jared.
Stephen A., do you believe Dudley?
No, I'm at all. He's a really good guy, really smart guy, and I'm not trying to throw any more about Kawhi Leonard. Let me say this. Paul George is averaging 27 against the Lakers. He did average 26 last year against the Lakers. Paul George is an all-star caliber player. He is not a scrub, and he happens to be one of the nicest people you'd ever meet, to be quite honest with you. Incredibly respectful. He's a professional. He's a good dude. He might have had differences with certain players like a Montrezl Harrell or somebody, but Paul George is a good guy. Let's be very, very clear about that. He's not one of those guys that's an a-hole and he motivates you to really, really come at him night and day because of your disdain for him. You run across the NBA, you don't find guys that feel that way about Paul George. Now, they might feel something along the lines like Kawhi's a champion and you're not, but it's not like they look at Paul George like he's some scrub and you know what, let's go and give it to him because it ain't gonna be that easy. The brother can play. But the reason I bring on to downplay or shove aside the significance of what Kawhi Leonard did coming to Los Angeles. And I'm sick and tired of it. Kawhi Leonard is a superstar caliber player, one of the top 5 players in the game, incredibly respected and feared to some degree because he's such an elite defender when he really focuses on it. We know what Kawhi Leonard could do. Let's focus on what he did. He won the championship in Toronto, signed on with New Balance, even before that actually, come to LA, got the commercial for New Balance, driving the convertible down the highway in LA, and the king's crown dangling from his mirror and all of this other stuff. He was coming for LeBron because LeBron wasn't a champion. He was. And he was like, I'm the reigning defending champion now, and I'm coming to your town. And so astutely highlighted in the past. That's what Kawhi Leonard was doing. And if you LeBron James, you knew everybody and their mama was waiting for that confrontation. Yes, Lakers, Clippers. Yes, Paul George with Kawhi against Anthony Davis and LeBron. But they were waiting for LeBron versus Kawhi. And anybody who tries to deny that, I ain't even trying to listen to them. I'm not even trying to listen to them because everybody was waiting for that confrontation. And that's why we still ticked off that the Clippers didn't come through.
You are so passionate. You talk about this with such fervor about Kawhi. It's such a pet issue of yours that it is clouding your judgment here. If you want to make this about Kawhi, go ahead. He did everything you said he did. He went to go at LeBron, and he failed to even get to that game, even to the Western Conference Finals, and he failed. I thought he was going to win the whole thing. But up until then, Kawhi was magnificent in the playoffs, as he had been the year before. Kawhi plays the regular season at near MVP levels, right? Like maybe a little quarter step behind the very best, and then when it matters most, he's as good as anybody, or better. Paul George is not an MVP caliber player, and we all know it. He's not quite at that level. He's not a 5-star. He's a 4.5-star player. And those guys, if they're going to be Robin to Kawhi's Batman, if a guy like that is going to be the main support to a superstar, or better yet, if he's supposed to be the other superstar, and he's not quite an MVP, if anything, he's got to elevate when it matters most, or at least stay his same self. Stephen A., Paul George, a really nice guy. I've interviewed him a couple times, and I know people who know him. Really nice guy. Toward Kawhi for the special treatment, what keeps coming back to me is what people resented was Paul George was given that same special treatment, and they felt he in particular did not have that status. And what we're hearing from Jared Dudley now is echoes of that. Stephen A., maybe even if Paul George did elevate, they don't get it done. But at least they got a shot. Last year was not on Kawhi. He deserves the attention, you're right, because he did aim at the king, and he missed. But Paul George didn't hold his end of the bargain. Kawhi, throughout the playoffs, was great. Paul George wasn't, and people noticed it.
Paul George wasn't showing up in the playoffs in the first round. By the second round against Denver, he had some pretty damn good games himself. That's number one. Number two, it wasn't on him to show up as much as it was on Kawhi. That's number way in a better context that I've never put it in before, Max Kellerman. If the Lakers get bounced out by Portland, if they get bounced out by whomever, and there's someone else waiting for the Clippers, if the Clippers were to advance to the conference finals, would we have cared as much? Hell no. It mattered because the Lakers and the Clippers appeared to be on a collision course, and the Clippers wet the bed and didn't hold up their end of the bargain. And with that being Kawhi Leonard at the forefront of that, I don't want to hear anything about Paul George. Looking at Kawhi.
All right, let's leave it there. Guys, I mentioned this earlier in the week.
Top team in the West, top team in the East.
Finals preview.
It's the Lakers and the Sixers. Lakers have won all their road games, and Joel Embiid honoring Kobe and Gigi Bryant with some custom shoes before the game. A moment of silence for Kobe, of course, Philly native. Marc Gasol guarded Embiid tougher than any other defender in Embiid's career. Embiid takes it right at Gasol. A couple of possessions later, Embiid, who averages just about 11 a game going head-to-head against Gasol, had 13 in the quarter, and the Sixers led by double digits after the first 12 minutes. 10-point lead. LeBron James coming off an enormous game against Cleveland the other night. 16 in the paint in the first half, tied for his most in any half since joining the Lakers. Down the lane, through the contact. It's a joke. 9 of 13 from the floor in the first half. Third consecutive half with at least 20 points. Ties his longest streak in the last decade. He just refuses to age. Embiid here lands directly on his back, and he's down in pain. Now another look here, and you'll see LeBron will get called for the flagrant one as he shoves Embiid while he's in midair. Now, Embiid with his thoughts afterwards.
You look at it, that's a very dangerous play. And I guarantee you that if it was me, I would have.
It is a dangerous play. Guys in the air, you got to be very cognizant of that. Embiid stays on the floor and continues to play at a high level. Buries a three there. Sixers up 7. Danny Green looking to go for his personal three-peat with 3 different teams. One with Toronto, one with the Lakers, and now here playing for Philly, part of a triple-double for Simmons on the assist. Dennis Schroeder, a knockdown 3. Philadelphia looked like they were going to cruise to a victory. Suddenly it's down to 4, and Doc's not thrilled. LeBron drives, kick.
But to the pros we go. LeBron and the Lakers picked up a win over the Hawks last night in Atlanta, but it was a courtside interaction that made news when a fan who was heckling LeBron along with 3 others were booted. Here's the King on what went down.
I'm happy fans are back in the building. I miss that interaction. I need that interaction. We as players need that interaction. I don't feel like it was warranted to be kicked out. There was a back and forth between 2 grown men, and then when someone else jumped into it and said their piece. And it kind of got blown out of proportion.
Stephen A., do you think the fans should have been ejected from the arena?
Based on what we saw on video and what LeBron James said, no, I don't believe that. I think that in this day and age, particularly with what the world is going through, and specifically here in America in the sports world, to see fans heckling players and stuff like that is actually welcomed, to be honest with you. Now, there are limits. Russell Westbrook and various others can speak to that because some things that are said are completely and utterly uncalled for. In my years of covering the NBA, I've seen many occasions where fans definitely cross the line with some of their language and some of the things that they said. But other times when they're heckling you and bothering you, I don't think that it warrants ejection. I think going over to them and telling them to watch their language is about as far as it needs to go, because in most instances they know how to heckle you while minding their manners in terms of their language, and I think that they're definitely capable. I'll give you a personal experience, Max and Molly. I was at the Rams-Kansas City games. Remember that Monday night game years ago when Kansas City lost to L.A. 54-51, that epic Monday night football game? Well, I'm in the suite for ESPN LA radio, and fans were screaming at me and stuff like that. And one of the guys was getting out of control and he was heckling me. The security went over to remove him. And I told security, no, leave him alone. It's okay. And I looked at the guy and I just said, just watch your language. Just watch your language and you good. And he actually thanked me for it. He still heckled me, but he heckled me in PC fashion, not rated R. And as a result, we all ended up having fun. I was messing with them. They were messing with me. And it's all in fun. And I think that's the kind of thing that LeBron is alluding to when he talks about how the fans shouldn't have been ejected. She seemed a bit acerbic when she jumped into the fray, whoever that person was, with the gentleman LeBron was arguing with. But I appreciate what LeBron is saying. You kind of missed that, and you want to see that because the fans are an integral part of what makes the game special. And watching these games without them in attendance, even though I really appreciate the players playing and playing with the fervor that they're playing with, I really do miss the fans there. So I appreciate where LeBron came from on this, and I agree with his assessment.
Yeah, first let me say, LeBron can get down in the mud and wrestle and come out clean. Like, the way he handled this was just right. First of all, his tweet, courtside Karen was mad, all caps, is hilarious. And even the fact that he said she shouldn't have been ejected, he likes the interaction, the fact that he's going back and forth with them, it's all good. And she should not have been ejected based on what I understand, except I have to say this. When you talk loud and a lot, that's how you spread COVID, right? Like, that's what you like, because it's really expectorant. It's the particles coming out of your mouth. I know it sounds disgusting or funny or whatever, but that's what the mask really does. The mask is not there to protect you. Your mask is there to protect me. My mask is there to protect you. And it looks like we're in the home stretch of this thing. The vaccine is coming out, but it's going to take some time. You don't want the thing to mutate. There's still high mortality or like people dying because there aren't enough hospital beds, stuff like that. So we still need to be careful. And if the mask is off her face and she's yelling, I don't know, Stephen A., if she was warned to put her mask back on and she didn't. But if she's yelling with her mask down, then I could see that being the basis of her removal. That has not been reported, that they told her, hey, put your mask back on, and they didn't. But that's one way I could see, okay, I get it. She's got to go. Otherwise, it doesn't seem like just even cursing back and forth. It's not like there's a way that you can use language that you can't repeat, for example, on ESPN airwaves, that is still not over the line in terms of kind of common trash talking. And it seems like that was the case here. So if